Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1532A, and today's date is March 29th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Brace for the Impact. It's not if, but when the economy collapses. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it's not about if the economy is going to collapse. It's really about when. And that's what we've been talking about for quite a while. When is this system going to come down? Now, nobody has the exact date because things are always in motion. Things are changing. 1 minute we thought, Obama was going to be in office, handing it off to Clinton. And we, at that point, said, okay, if that does happen, we know we're going to be going to war. We know they're going to bring down the economy during that period of time because this is normally what the central bankers do when they need to cover up everything. But everything got switched around. Clinton wasn't put in office. Trump won the election, and things have changed. And since he's been in office, things have dramatically changed in the economy, the way everything's being approached, and what is happening around the world. And what I see happening right now has completely changed because in the past, we were up against China, we were up against Russia. These were the enemies. Today, they are not the enemies. Trump, the administration, has been working with these countries and working with these countries to change the economic system globally. Not just here in the United States, not in Europe, but everywhere. And the only way to do this is to get certain leaders together and form some type of pact behind the scenes to push an agenda, to push the central banking system out. And the only way to do this is to bring down their system because they are intertwined. They are like an octopus with many tentacles that are far-reaching into every country, and they're controlling each country with debt. And that is their control. And the only way to get around all of this and to break them up is to destroy them. And this is what we see happening right now. Now, the economy has not been doing well for a very long time because under a central banking rule, you are kept in the dark. They put this gigantic illusion in front of you, making you think that everything is great. They pull the plug, they build it up again. They make everything seem like it's great. They pull the plug, and they keep doing this over, the course of their reign. And this is what's been happening. Where we are today is they have nowhere to go because they know their system only lasts about 45 plus some years. And once it reaches this point, they are stuck. The debt is too high. Their system starts to crash on its own. It's happened in the past. They know this. And this is why they were making preparations to move this system. And I think they were trying to move this and start it up in China. And of course, the new system with the petro yuan and everything else will be backed by gold, or it will be a confidence booster. And eventually what they would do is they would take over the system, just like they did here in the United States, which they did in the UK, which they did in Spain and France and every single other country. And while everyone is feeling comfortable, the system is great, everything's fantastic, there's checks and balances, eventually what would happen is they would start maneuvering to take the system over and take us off the checks and balances so they can print and put countries into debt. They're very patient. They don't rush anything. But while all of this is happening and while they were making all these plans, things have changed. Xi Jinping, Trump, Putin, they are maneuvering right now to move away from the central banking establishment. The central bankers know this. They realize what's coming. They're sending up these rainy day funds. They are squandering their assets. They are hiding their information. And they're in panic mode right now. And this is going to be the last step of the complete takeover of the global economic system. where they go after the central bank and they pretty much get rid of it or nationalize it in each one of these countries, just like Russia did. And what we're watching is the deterioration of the economy. I mean, it's not improving. It has not improved since 2008. It has gotten worse. And all they could do all throughout this period of time was to manipulate the data to make people think that everything was fine, just like they did prior to 2008 when they said, hey, listen, the subprime securities, they're perfectly great investments. They are fantastic. Pension funds can invest in them. You don't have to worry. They're AAA. But we realize now, of course, always after the fact, they turn out to be garbage. They also told us they weren't predicting a recession in the year that we had a recession. They know what they're doing. They know how to trick the American people, how to trick the population of the world. That's what they're good at. And what we're watching is everything fall apart here in the United States. Not just here in the United States, but in Europe. I mean, right now, real personal spending, that is completely tumbling. It has tumbled the most since the financial crisis. And this is the 26th straight month in a row. Now, personal spending continually declines. Credit card usage, that's continually rising. Now, we've seen this pattern before. This was prior to 2008. Now, what's very interesting is that there's a certain pattern that we've seen over and over and over, where consumer confidence reaches all-time highs while saving rates reach all-time lows. Now, right before the recession in 2001, we saw this spread. Confidence very high, saving rate very low. Prior to 2008, we saw the same thing. Confidence very high, consumer confidence very high, saving rate very low. Here we are today in 2018, consumer confidence very, very high, savings rate very, very low. This is just another indicator. We also see the buying plans of Americans. This is from the recent Conference Board survey. Well, they have declined rapidly, which is another sign, that another indicator showing us that things are rapidly falling apart. So when we start to look at all these indicators, and we talked about the indicators yesterday, and you start to put this up all together, and you go back in time and you start to put all these indicators together, each one is showing us that we're in a recession or a recession is approaching very, very quickly. It's not saying, oh, we're in good times, we're in this incredible recovery, don't worry, everything's going to be great. When we look at these indicators, we see the opposite actually happen. Now, if we look at the Libor, well, let me explain what Libor is. Libor is a benchmark rate which some of the world's leading banks charge each other for short-term loans. It stands for Intercontinental Exchange London Interbank Offered Rate, and serves as the first step to calculating interest rates on various loans throughout the world. So when we look at Libor, we can see that Libor has been rising for 37 straight days in a row. This is the longest consecutive string of advances since a 50-day streak ending in 2005. Now, if we focus on the Libor 10-year curve, what do we see? Well, we see the same thing that has been happening prior to other recessions. And when we go back in time, if we go all the way back to 2001, we see the same thing. The steepness inversion of the 2-year, 10-year as a harbinger of the next recession. And it hits this point where it's continually declining, and we enter a recession. It happened in 2001, it happened in 2007, and it is happening right now. This is another indicator letting us know that something has gone very wrong. And once again, when we start to look at each one of these indicators, they're not showing us that the economy is improving, the global economy is getting better. It's actually showing the opposite. And what is happening right now is that with China, with the US, with Russia, they are working together to bring down the central banking system. If you notice, Q has said that Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter, they'll all be under investigation. Now, these stocks make up the FANG. And basically, when those start to go down, we're going to see things happening in the stock market. We see already with the tariffs, with the reciprocal taxes, with the bilateral trades that are going on because we're getting rid of the TPP, which was gotten rid of. We see that NAFTA, that's pretty much going nowhere, getting rid of the globalist framework. We see that everything is being maneuvered away from the system they wanted, which was a one world government, moved to a completely different system, because we can't be on the globalist system if you bring down the central banking system. It doesn't work. You need to get rid of all of it. And remember, they've been preparing for a one world government, a globalist type of system for a very long time. They were almost there. But again, things didn't work out for the deep state, the cabal. And now everything is being maneuvered away from that. This is why China has introduced the petro yuan. This is like the flare up in the sky saying, okay, it is now time. Now, just because they launched it on the 26th doesn't mean the petrodollar collapses. It means it's the beginning stages. Just like it was the beginning stages where China had to build up their manufacturing. China had to amass a huge amount of gold. China had to duplicate the payment system here in the United States, had to duplicate the exchanges. Same thing with Russia. And I do believe they're going to maneuver away from the private Western central banking system. That is the plan. And the reason why Trump is setting up all these bilateral trades is because that is what is going to be used on the One Belt, One Road system. And we can see that this is where we are headed now. The transition is coming. It's not about if, it's about when does it hit. Now, is it going to hit one day and we say, oh my God, we're in the transition? No, we're going to have this slow transition moving forward. If Trump's plan works, this is what's going to happen. Now, it's almost like when we came off the gold standard back in the 70s. Everyone just didn't wake up and say, hey, the whole thing just fell apart. It was a slow transition. You couldn't get oil. People couldn't find jobs. Interest rates shot up. They were creating a lot of currency. The news was out there telling you that this is the reasons why this was all happening. Of course, it was all completely fake, phony, and false. And it took a very long time to iron all of this out as we transitioned from the gold standard over to the petrodollar standard. And again, we were still the reserve currency, so it wasn't as bad. If you go to the UK, where they weren't the reserve status, I mean, they had like rolling blackouts, they had problems, people were on strike. I mean, it was pretty darn bad out there. Here, a lot of people couldn't find jobs. Things were all messed up. There were gas lines. This time it's going to be a little bit different, because as we transition away from the petrodollar system, we will no longer be the reserve currency. So we're going to see this transition in a different way this time, where credit, most likely oil, and everything else is going to be a little difficult to get, because once we come off the petrodollar system, it's going to take a little while for other things to come online where we can get the supplies we need. Plus, credit most likely is going to come to a screeching halt as we move to a new system, and a lot of things are going to be reworked. And this is going to be a transition period where it's going to last for probably a couple of months before everything is ironed out. And of course, the corporate media will make all their different stories of why this is all happening. They'll blame it all on Trump and things like that. But eventually what will happen from everything that he's trying to do right now is once it comes back online, people will notice a very big difference in the way everything works. Now, is it going to be the same type of lifestyle that we had? Well, we don't know as of yet. But as we move forward, you need to be ready, because there's going to be this period of time where we're going to go through this transition. And for many, many people who are still sleeping, who are not aware of what is going on, they're going to be hit very hard, especially those people that are just holding dollars, because the dollar is going to lose value very, very quickly. We already see it happening. And we can see that as the troops and everything else are being removed from the Middle East, and as these countries out there take over their government and make decisions on their own of what they're going to use to sell the oil. Are they going to use the petrodollar? Are they going to use the petro-yuan? Well, most likely they're going to use the petro-yuan. They're not going to use the petrodollar anymore. And once this starts to happen, there's a liquidity crisis because the dollar won't be used in all these countries. We already see a liquidity crisis happening in Europe right now. A lot of these dollars are going to float back to the United States, which is going to cause inflation. So as we move forward, you need to be ready. Yes, you're going to need cash on hand. Why? Because in beginning stages, people don't know what else to trade in. And of course, it's going to lose value, but you'll need your cash to trade. You'll need the cash to purchase things. Eventually, cash will be worth nothing. So you won't use that anymore. And then the next phase, since cash is worth absolutely nothing, will be bartering. Listen, I have toilet paper. What do you have? Oh, you have toothpaste. I'll trade you. And people will do this to, get what they need. Or they might even trade labor. Listen, I will fix your window for you if you give me toilet paper. Things like that. And then we will move past that into whatever the sound money will be. And those people holding gold and silver, cryptocurrency and things like that, they will have an insurance policy compared to those people who have all the dollars in their bank account. Because if you have, I'm going to make a number up, $10,000 in your bank account, that might only be worth $1,000 compared to $1,000 in gold priced at US dollars, that might be worth $10,000 at that point. That's where you're going to see the difference. Same thing with cryptocurrencies. So you need to be ready. You need to be prepared because we're going through this transition, and it's not if, it's when. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.